2020, and the Rams were trying to win the division. The Jets were trying to tank, and I was just so ticked off. And it was an embarrassing loss. And so, yeah, we'll keep
so
going.
supportive. Thank you. And I'm just so thankful for everyone who reached out because the LA Rams lost to the New York Jets. Yeah, it happened. It was terrible. Everything. There's moments of hope. I have come to the realization we need to move on from Goff. Yeah, it's done. Jared Goff. The only way I can ever move forward with him as my quarterback comfortably is if he wins the Super Bowl.
Oh my!
That's the only redeemable thing. He has no grit. If things are not working perfectly, for whatever reason, it just doesn't work. He is a great guy, great person, super nice. I'm so thankful for that. Bless him for it.
He's a great guy.
However, his margin of error is just so low to be a consistent NFL quarterback. And when I see the team around him, the defense, the receivers, the O-line, like this team just seems to have everything in order. And when all 5 of your losses in the season can be pinned on you, the quarterback, you have to, it's time to move on. It is time for the Rams to move on from Jared Goff. This loss absolutely was the breaking point for me. I have defended him to an extent. I've always said there's room for criticism, but there's worse quarterbacks in the league. Absolutely. I'm done. I cannot believe that the Rams lost to the stinking Jets. Pats and Bills and Dolphin fans, you're welcome for possibly keeping Trevor Lawrence out of your division.
Wow.
But yeah, I'm done. Jared Goff, I'm done. I'm done. This is the moment I was done with Jared Goff.
Wow, that video has not aged well at all. Wow. Okay, so first off, I still think it's hilarious, and I do owe the Jets kind of essentially for starting Peo Time as a Rams YouTube channel. And I think back to that game, and I remember all my friends telling me, like, oh yeah, you got the Jets are tanking, easy win, you got this. Like, Rams are there anyway. And it's so funny thinking back to that season, because the Rams did have like a phenomenal defense that year. Like we had a good good skill position, a good O-line, and I stand by the criticism of Goff that year had regressed, and there were games that he fumbled away, he gave interceptions away, and just like when the littlest thing went wrong, he did not answer the call. Now, I want to say he has improved a massive amount, and I give full credit to Jared Goff to what he's done and accomplished in Detroit. He definitely has grit. Okay, that video, when I say he has no grit, he's got the grit now, and power to Goff. But yeah, what are your thoughts when you see that video?
Well, as far as the Goff thing is concerned, I just think, and we're seeing the same thing with Sam Darnold, which coincidentally was the quarterback of that game, right, who I think might end up being a Ram pretty soon. I think what's interesting about it is that it's a thing about the NFL that we as fans and what the organization around the NFL don't do anymore, which is give these guys time.
Yep.
And understand that there are some naturals who adapt right away. Their game transitions to the NFL right away. And then there are those that they take time to develop. They simply take time to develop, to adjust to the speed of the NFL. So, they can improve in their progressions. I think Goff always had the arm talent and like the ability to get the ball anywhere on the field and do all those great things, but he just needed more time to be able to mentally process the speed of the NFL. And it's not like he didn't get you to a Super Bowl before that. So he showed off a lot of that raw talent, and now we're seeing, fortunate for him, his second opportunity on a different organization with great support, right? Really excellent coaching, great offensive line, lots of weapons,
Great
you know.
running back,
So he's just been privileged with so much surrounding talent his whole career, which has really helped him as well. But I don't blame you for at the time for feeling that way, because at the time the Jets were so bad. And it was just so shocking. And it was the only, I remember that JFM, who was actually a Ram, right? He was in the Super Bowl for you guys at one point. Jonathan Franklin Myers had this breakout game.
Right.
Like in the first half, he was just unbelievable. And the worst part about all this was you think you were upset that day. I was 10 times more upset than you, because all I'm wanting this freaking team to do is lose so I can get Trevor Lawrence into New York. And I'm watching I'm like, who is this guy, John Franklin Myers? Like, why is he good all of a sudden?
Yeah.
So mad. I was so upset.
And do you know what's funny is you go back and you watch like the highlights to that game and stuff. It wasn't a fun game. Like, it was a close game. Like, the Jets barely won, but it was not good football. Like both teams were like just struggled to make it past half, and it was like it wasn't an entertaining game. And it's so interesting thinking back to the Rams fans like me were super frustrated that we lost that game to the Jets. That were you were winless at the time, if I recall.
Yeah, I think that was our first win of the season.
Yeah, it was the first win of the year. And it was like
that's another thing that's so unlucky about the Jets. We could be like 0-14, finish a year 2-14 when there was 16 games, and it didn't matter. There always managed to be someone worse. And of course, Jacksonville, and they're doing it to us again, was even more. You know?
Yeah. Okay, so let's fast forward to the present now. So the Rams, they're on a bit of a hot streak. They're looking good. They're looking to win their division. And there are some people out there that would say, no way the Jets beat the Rams. I am in full-on trap game warning because of what happened in 2020. I know that history it sometimes repeats itself, but like, you have the Rams hoping to win their division, you have the Jets trying to tank, and then you have the Jags, who are worse than the Jets, as you mentioned. But let me ask you this question, Jeremy. What would a win against the Rams on Sunday mean for you and Jets fans right now?
I mean, well, we're split. The fan base is split. There's always that part of the fan base that says it's not okay to tank. You should never root against your team. Obviously, for me, it sucks. It was bad enough we beat Jacksonville. It's like, now I just want to, okay, now we're playing Buffalo, Miami, and the Rams. Just all, like, let's just lose those 3 games for the love of God and stay in the top 10, right? So we can get help. Now, I got to admit, it's nothing like last time, because last time there was something real at stake. Last time there was Trevor Lawrence, right? And he was the golden prize and everybody wanted him. There's none of that this year, right? Because we're not getting the number 1 pick, which would be probably Hunter from Colorado. Wide receiver, a cornerback, plays both ways. I mean, there are some Jet fans that I just don't agree with, who believe Sanders or Ward are good quarterbacks, and that I don't believe in either of those quarterbacks. To me, it would be tragic if we selected them. Like, it would be just another Zach Wilson all over again. Right. So I'm not excited about those quarterbacks. So I'm kind of happy we're not in the top 5 like picks, and I hope we're not, because I'm afraid that we're going to get a new GM that picks one of those 2 quarterbacks, and then we've wasted another 3 years. Like, to me, it's like, I just hope to God, please don't take a quarterback in this draft. But at the same time, I'll be kind of bummed, like, because I would like a top 10 pick. There are guys like Mason Graham. There's players I'm already looking at and eyeing. Abdul Carter, the guy from Penn State, the pass rusher. I'd love to grab him. So, I mean, it's not like last time. But I want to see the young Jet players on the roster play well. Yeah. But unfortunately, we lose a close game and we get the draft,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, we are on the same page. So, like, we know what this is. Like, the Rams are looking to win this game. The Jets, the players and coaches should absolutely be trying to win this game because it's their job. But fans are totally allowed to have that, like, the tank mentality or the not tank, like, no judgment either way. But I guess I am cautious about this game because the Rams have been inconsistent at times this year. Now they've been getting a lot better as of late, and hopefully they're getting hot at the right time. But do you think that the Jets beating the Jaguars last week is something that this Jets team can build off of? Like, do you think that like that switch has kind of clicked and that like because a lot of your young players are maybe living up to their potential more now that like the pressure of trying to compete with the Bills is gone in
Well,
this?
the danger to the Ram fan base to you is not just it was just the Jaguars. It's actually the last two games. They're
Okay.
offensively, the Jets have a lot to build off of the last two. In the
Okay.
past two games, Rodgers has thrown for 550 yards in the last two games, a 300-yard game, and then the 200+ yard game, the crazy 190 yards to Devontae. The game before that, Garrett Wilson had this incredible game against Jalen Ramsey where he put up 90 yards against them, which nobody does, right? So the fear that the Rams have to worry about is a shootout that we managed to win, because as bad as the Jets have been and the inability to win games, you see the roster, right? I mean, our offensive line is a young, good offensive line. They're actually playing well. And then you have Rodgers, who, when he plays well, he hasn't been consistent, but he sneakily has 24 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 3,200 yards, has an outside chance to still hit 4,000 yards.
Yeah.
And you look at Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, you look at the running backs, Breece Hall and Braylon Young and Isaiah Davis, these young two guys behind them. It's like, on paper, it's a very scary offense. They just find ways to lose, right? So I think that strategically, the reason it would be really hard to imagine the Jets winning this game is because Puka and Cooper Kupp are going to eat all day long.
Yeah.
Because the Jets defense, first of all, the Jets make no adjustments on defense. We played the same defense for 3 years. You know exactly what you're up against. You have one of our old offensive coordinator who knows that defense and has practiced against it a million times. He knows exactly what our defense is. And what our defense is, Puka and Kupp are the kryptonite for it, and that is short passing game, quick slant routes. We play tons of zone. We give tons of space in the middle.
Yeah.
Right. And we try not to give up the big play, which means you guys can just hold the ball for 40 minutes out of the 60 minutes and just slowly work down the field. And whether you get the touchdown or the field goal, you could just keep us off the field. And we're not going to make adjustments. We're not going to not do that because we haven't not done that for 3 years. And that's why it's so hard to imagine us winning the game and saying the only way it could happen is a shootout.
Okay, interesting. And I appreciate everyone tuning on in the chat. I will star your questions and we'll definitely we'll address them. I'll just say this. So it's interesting you bring up Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. Something that I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily understand is like them as kind of tactical wide receivers only works when you have a quarterback like Stafford. A really intelligent quarterback who can read the defense and then like just communicate with these, wide receivers that, they'll like, they do these subtle movements to change up their play or change up their route. And it's been a pleasure to watch, especially as of late. And Puka is just going off. So I'm optimistic that the Rams offense can put up points. They did have a pretty lackluster showing against the Niners. They got the win, which is all we care about. But I would like to see them have more of a performance like they had against the Bills, if you will. But I will say this. I am nervous about this Jets team because I do feel like they are a team that's ripe to play spoiler for certain teams. And I kind of wish the Rams were playing the Jets earlier in the year. This game, it is an East Coast game, right? And so I'm those are kind of some of the things you're always kind of nervous about. At the end of the day, I just care that the Rams win. I would love to have a comfortable win, but like Ram fans have not had that this year. We are at 8-6, but it has been a stressful 8-6. Let me tell you.
Not a lot of teams get comfortable wins against us. Arizona did. And the Niners kind of did, but even when the Niners game in that first opening game of the year, that Monday Night Football, midway into the third quarter, it wasn't a blowout. We still had the ball at one point where a touchdown, we were 8-9 points down with the ball, third quarter still. If we score here, we're right back in the game kind of thing. Arizona was really the blowout. So that I'll say is going to be difficult for you, maybe, because that one thing the Jets do is they kind of play to the level of their competition. So like, and just the natural way to beat us by, like I'm saying, is we really protect against the big play. So for the most part, it's going to be, you're going to have to grind, which you will. But it takes up time. So it's going to lower the amount of points you could put up, because we do make it, we usually, unless it's the end of the game and you need a touchdown in 2 minutes, which we're great at giving you. We're great at that. But like for the first 3.5 quarters of every football game, we give up touchdowns, but we make we take time off the clock doing it. It's like it grinds.
Okay,
so we do manage to keep Canes close, because again, Aaron Rodgers is not consistent through the game, but he'll have a quarter or 2 quarters in the game where our offense is going to look very good.
Okay.
I think another wild card I didn't mention that you got going for you is that we can't stop the run, and you have a very good running back.
Okay, I was about to ask about Kyren Williams, and do you think this is potentially a really good matchup for him?
Oh, just we cannot stop the run. I mean, we're absolutely horrendous. So right, so I mean, like, you could run on us all day. As a matter of fact, I don't know if we beat the Houston Texans if they're not so stupid. Like, the dumbest thing they did was in the second half they stopped running the ball, and they actually gifted us that. They helped us by not running the ball. So, definitely the running the ball, but also he could have a big game if you give him screen passes, because it's been 3 years with this defense, 4 years with this defense. We still can't stop a screen pass that's executed well.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate the comfort here. We got a couple of questions in the chat, and some to me, some more towards you. And so Dano Jets, am I pronouncing that right?
He's asking for your take on Kupp.
Yeah. Kupp is not washed. Cooper Kupp is older for sure. I don't expect him to have like 2021 Cooper Kupp Triple Crown winner. However, Cooper Kupp is still one of the smartest wide receivers in football on the planet. And if you do not account for Cooper Kupp, you will get burned by Cooper Kupp. His cup will runneth over you. Yeah. And Willie, thank you for bringing this up here. So Tyler Higbee has been out since he got injured last year in the playoff game against the Lions. This is actually going to be his season debut this week.
Okay.
So the Rams are excited to get him back. Curious to see what he looks like. Any chance Tyler Higbee has a big, welcome back party this game?
Well, our guy that would usually make it hard for him has not played well, and since his injury, he's been injured all year. It's Michael Carter II, who's our slot corner, who I guess when we're playing nickel would be on the tight end, and then when we're playing base, we're pretty good. We have Quincy Williams is pretty fast. Sherwood, I mean, our guys are pretty good in coverage for that. But we managed to he's struggled as of late, and it's not like we haven't had tight ends put giant games up against us, because we have.
Yeah.
And a lot of the reason for that is because we've had overall a very good secondary, because Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, a lot of teams don't go to their wide receivers as often, like as far as vertically.
Yeah.
They go, I mean, this has changed a little this year, but typically teams have had to utilize their wide receivers by going, like I said, short game, because again, we don't play man. Like, we're not going to put Sauce on Puka. Like, we're not going to do that. You could design your offense literally to have your wide receivers against our safeties. We allow that based on the zone that we're playing. So, and I'm sure that LaFleur and your staff is going to have a very good design. I think that the way Carter II is played, which has not been very well, that Tyler Higbee could potentially have a really big game. But if I was the Rams, I don't see why. Like I would, it's just not the way I would do it. I would do I would do screen passes to my running back. I'd run the ball a lot, and I would just have Kupp and Puka work the inside all day long. Like just monopolize the zone. We play a zone. We leave tons of space. You just eat that up all day long.
Okay.
When you need to go deep, we'll give you a pass interference penalty. Like that's been our thing. We'll give you the PI every time almost.
Drew, you're giving me the faith I need to hope, because again, from the Rams perspective, if they win this game and Seattle loses to Minnesota, which is very realistic, the Rams can win their division against the Cardinals week 17 on Saturday night when they play. Mm-hmm. So I would love that to happen. But if the Rams lose this game, there would be some consequences to that there. But yeah.
The only thing, and when you say spoiler, the only bad news for you is really out of the 3 games we got remaining, you're the only team left that would allow us to be a spoiler. Like, we're not spoiling anything for Buffalo. They're freaking where they are, what they are, right? I mean, and we're not spoiling anything for Miami because they're out of the playoffs. So, like, if there's any spoiler game left for the Jets, it's the Rams.
Okay, that's good to know. Well, hopefully there's no spoiled milk here. Wild Wave sends you $4.99 super chat here. If you guys lose, you have to send Sean McVay to the Jets as punishment. No reason. I do not agree to the terms of that bet.
It's mind-boggling to me how teams let us off the hook. Like, it's like we'll talk about it. Me and Green Bean during the broadcast, and Frankie from Flatbush, I don't know if you know him. He's the numbers guy, and he says it all game because I don't understand why they're not just running the ball against us. Like, we cannot stop the run. You literally can get a first down almost every time. We cannot stop the run. Like, just no. Like we barely seen it this season, and it's humorous how many teams have let us off the hook by just not running the ball.
So you think, like, if the Rams bring in like a heavy run formation, just pound the rock with Kyren Williams and Blake Corum all day, and that's a recipe for success?
No, I wouldn't do that. I would run out of 11.
Okay.
I would run out of 11. I wouldn't go heavy. Because if you go heavy, our defense is going to go heavy.
Okay.
Then you know what I mean? And then we have a little bit more of a chance to be, physical. You want to go in 11, you want to have us spread out in our zone. And just take advantage of the fact that the interior of our defensive line is just total garbage. Will McDonald is a great pass rusher, but he's still young and learning. He's not the greatest edge sealer. And then Hassan Reddick just hasn't played well. Like he traditionally was a great edge sealer, but he's just not playing well. I mean, he's had a good game, and then most of his games have been bad. He's not really doing anything for us.
Yeah. Okay. Question here from Grandizer, big fan of yours, big fan of. I know both of us are fans of him. Question to Jets Chaos: a win over the Rams. What does it say to you about the Jets? With all the changes with the Jets, where are the team at mentally?
Well, I mean, I think the most dangerous thing for the Rams now is that the Jets don't care. There's no pressure.
Yeah.
Right. That's the that's the biggest thing, because the Jets, it was funny. Robert Saleh, who coached it, got fired, after the 5th game. The thing he would always say for the last 3.5 years was, it's all about how you handle adversity. He goes, that's when you learn about your team. Well, the Jets have proven that they are probably maybe one of the worst teams in history in handling adversity. Like, the Jets fail. It's so ironic that that's what he would always say, because the Jets failed as much as you can fail when you talk about adversity and how you deal with adversity. The problem is there's no more adversity, right? Now you just have, it's almost like a tryout, right? It's like, Rodgers wants to play next year, so now he's playing with a chip on his shoulder to prove he could still play. Yeah. And that's why him and Devontae waking up, like, offensively, you should be concerned about our offense. You definitely should.
Okay.
Like, if our offense clicks, it's a dangerous offense. It is. Like, on paper, there's no way to argue it. If Aaron Rodgers plays really well and consistent, which he hasn't done a lot this season, but he's had his moments where he does. Yeah. If he comes out and plays the way he's played the last 2 weeks, we're very dangerous. We have very good running backs. We have a good offensive line. We have two, we have Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams, and you saw what Adams still got it. Unless you got a corner that can shut him down, he's not an easy wide receiver. Like it's not easy to just deal with those two wide receivers. So, it's our problem is consistency and knowing if we're going to show up. But if we show up, it's a great offense. I mean, and I think that it's either going to be you beat us easily or, and slowly. It's going to be one of those games where the score's not too crazy of a blowout, but the game is just dominated by you. You have the ball for 40 minutes, you eat the clock up and you score, and Rodgers can't get a rhythm going, and we just don't score a lot of points. Or the flip side of that is the other alternative that I could see is a shootout.
Okay.
Like if Rodgers is on and he's consistent, he's whipping the ball around, and we're scoring points. You're going to be scoring points against us. There's no question about that. So we might see one of those kind of just big scoring games that go, 31-28 Rams, or even 38 to 26. There's just some very high scoring over 48 total point game.
Yeah. Something that we haven't talked about yet. I'm glad you brought up the Jets offense here. The Rams defense been inconsistent at times, better as of late, especially against the Niners last week. It was kind of a wet game in San Francisco, but the defense played quite well. This young front four for the Rams, some are calling the fearsome 24-some, of Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, Kobe Turner, and Byron Young.
Oh, we love Fisk in the draft, by the way. Like our Jet prospector, Dom C. We were all over that. We like that kid.
Because again, I love all the hot take artists that were like, "Oh, the Rams gave up too much to get Fisk." He has played amazing this year. I'm so glad they traded up to get him.
Yeah.
Do you think that this Jets O-line will have a kind of a difficult challenge with this young Rams defensive front?
I think it'll be a good matchup. I mean, because it's just not a weakness for us, but we're also it's their first year together, so they're not dominant yet. They're not Indianapolis 5 years ago when they had that dominant offensive line. I think that the Jets offensive line could gel into that in future years. Like the one thing the Jets don't understand, the organization they haven't done, is they don't understand the importance of having an offensive line that plays together for multiple years. Mm-hmm. Right? Where maybe there's one change, but like the root of the offensive line, like 4 out of the 5 are together for year after year after year. The Jets have had nothing close to that. Yeah. So the big thing that we're all saying, all the people in the know that aren't just casual fans, are recognizing how important it is that we extend Simpson, who's our right guard, and that, AVT, if he stays healthy, we need to keep him here because we understand, because we got Fashanu and Tippmann, who are young. We have them for another 3-4 years or whatever, but understanding the importance of allowing the offensive line to play. And the Rams are a great example of that, right? Like if you look at their Super Bowl year, if you look at their good years, look at their offensive line, look at the consistency of not completely making over the offensive line and, over and over again, where it's different players every year. So I think that your guys there's still some vulnerability with us where there's sometimes broken down plays where because our guys are young, and they're not completely gelled yet. They're not as good as they're going to be, let's say, next year. But I think it's just a good matchup. It's not a weakness for you it's not a weakness. You're not going in against a weak offensive line that you can say, oh, it's a weakness. It's going to be a competitive matchup. I think you'll do a good job in stopping our run. Our run blocking hasn't been great. We haven't been able to be consistent to establish a running game. But Rodgers gets rid of the ball fast. Typically, right? He's a 2.5 second or under quarterback. He always has been. And our offensive line has done a fine pass blocking job. So I think that, you'll probably stuff us a lot in the run. I would expect that. But I think that I don't think it's going to be like a heavy sack game or a game where, you're going to be getting to the quarterback like crazy right away.
Okay, fair enough. I'm actually really curious. I'm going to turn to the chat. If you guys give us your score predictions for this game, because I to be honest, I have a hard time predicting what kind of game this is going to be, right? The Rams, they just came from a defensive battle punt fest that was, against the Niners. Before that, they had a barn burner shootout against the Bills where they won 44-42. And you mentioned you kind of think this could be maybe a little bit of a higher scoring game. Do you think it comes down to the wire at the end of it?
I wouldn't be surprised, only because nothing would surprise me. That's the reality. and the reason is because on paper, the only thing that would surprise me is if our defense dominated your offense. That's the only thing that would shock me. It's the only thing I don't believe is possible.
Okay.
Like if you told me the Jets win 38-34 in a shootout, I believe that. It wouldn't shock me. I don't expect it, but it wouldn't shock me. If you told me the Rams beat the Jets 38-10, would not shock me, because we've played inconsistently. We've had, Rodgers might have an off day. Your guys might get to him, right? He's the receivers don't get open. He's holding the ball a long time. He's a statue. He's not mobile. All that stuff. He gets sacked hard. He's banged up now. The rest of the game, he stinks. All that is believable. The only thing I don't see believable is that the Jets win 24-3. Or 24-9 or whatever it is. There's no way I can possibly conceive that the Rams aren't going to very easily move the ball on us.
Okay, fair enough. I see some interesting predictions in the chat from Rodgers is going to be sacked and intercepted 4 times.
Well, I appreciate the enthusiasm on that, but Rodgers, the one thing is he had an unusual amount of interceptions the first 5 or 6 games of the year. He's had probably 1 or 2 interceptions the last 6 games. He's not throwing.
Cleaned it up. Yeah. And 17-14, 27-6, the LA Jets aren't winning. It's interesting when I think about this game. I do kind of see it's interesting seeing Stafford versus Rodgers on Rams and Jets, because for years it was Stafford versus Rodgers on the Lions and Packers. And the Packers were the team that were going to the playoffs, and he was on the Lions, which were playing spoiler towards the end of the year most of the time. Where now it's flipped. They're on totally different teams, and you have Stafford versus Rodgers. Stafford is on the team looking to win their division, go to the playoffs. Rodgers is essentially looking to play spoiler, right? And I could see a scenario where
playing for his job.
Yeah.
We don't know who the Jets general manager and new coaching staff is going to be. There is absolutely no guarantee that Rodgers is going to be not released. The Jets may choose to go the direction of cutting him and taking the salary cap hit that's left on his contract all at once in 25 and cleaning the slate moving forward. We don't know if the Jets are bringing him back or not.
Yeah, fair enough. Grandizer asked this question to us both: do you have a Jets versus Rams past game that sticks out to either of you? Well, we talked about this at the beginning of the stream about the last game, and reacted to my first video ever when the Rams lost to the Jets in 2020. These two teams, they don't play each other much. Grandizer points out here they've played 15 times, Jets winning 5 and the Rams winning 10. The Rams Jets is not this historic rivalry or anything like that, but is there anything that comes to mind for you?
I mean, I think we played it. I mean, I think the Rams Jets, the only game any Jet fan thinks about is the Jet fans who wanted the Jets to win that game couldn't care less.
Yeah,
the Jet fans that wanted Trevor Lawrence, and that was 80% of us. That was different that year because it was Trevor Lawrence, and we had a real shot. So, I mean, there's no question. It's the 2020 game against the Rams that that game will. I mean, when people talk about the Jets' inability to tank, we talk about that game. I mean, that is a legendary game now. When you think Jets Rams, you think that was the game where the Jets were too stupid to tank, right? And the problem was, and it's the same problem the Jets have this year if you're rooting for a tank, is this the second time that we have a coach, though, that knows they're not coming back. So they have no reason to tank. Like they're trying to win.
Yeah.
Like Jeff Ulbrich, the Jets coach, is trying to build his resume still and make a case that he's a real coach. So
Yeah.
he's not gonna tank, right? He's doing everything he can to win. And we don't even have our general manager to step in and say, I want those players not playing. I want the young players because I want to look at the tape for next year. Like we don't even have that because we don't have a GM. We have our scout guy, like the guy who supervises the scouts, Phil Savage. He's our scout talent coordinator. He's the only one right now, other than the owner, in that building, and a coaching staff that's all gone.
Right.
So we literally have one person in the entire building outside the ownership that's staying, and that's probably Phil Savage, because a lot of us don't think there's any reason to let him go. He's pretty good at his job, and he's not really connected or affiliated to the culture of the locker room or anything like that. He's just the guy who runs the scouting department,
Okay. Yeah. Well, and it's always interesting. That's part of I actually really appreciate you sharing that perspective, because the NFL off the field is sometimes just as interesting as the NFL on the field, and kind of the dynamics to it. And I think the Jets are definitely a team they're looking at some tough decisions to make. They got to figure out what they're doing with Rodgers. They got to figure out where the direction they want to go culturally as a franchise, because it seems like hasn't been working the past couple of years. And I feel, because I remember you and I talking about this Jets team when they hired Salah and they drafted Zach Wilson and things like that. There was so much hope, and clearly it has not worked out the way you had hoped.
I would say that the Zach Wilson bust, him being a bust, and the injuries to the offensive line over the last few years before this year just put a stake in the heart of this organization. It just killed the whole thing.
Yeah.
But the oddity is this year, because this year the offensive line's healthy, and we have Aaron Rodgers, but they finally get it together. But our defense fell apart. Like we didn't bring back our almost 50% of our defensive line, and the whole thing just fell apart.
Yeah. I gotta give a shout out. We got Darwin's Ravens, a great Ravens content creator in the chat. Appreciate you popping on in here, buddy. Joakim, you brought up Mike LaFleur not just at the beginning of this year. Did he leave the Jets awkwardly? This is his first time playing the Jets since leaving.
Well, there was a lot of people that said he was going to be fired, but they didn't fire him. They gave him the chance to find a job first, so he wasn't, because he's Salah's best friend, right? So Salah didn't want to fire him. Now, the reality is it was unfair. The reality was that LaFleur was grossly, grossly underrated and blamed. And there are Jet fans that'll hate me for saying it, but it's the truth. And my argument for that, and my evidence for that, is if you look at Mike LaFleur as the offensive coordinator for the Jets, in any football game that Zach Wilson was not the quarterback, and take those games, we were a top 15 offense in the NFL.
Interesting.
Even with a decimated offensive line the last 3 years before last year, even with the offensive line being completely barraged with injury, for 2 years LaFleur was here, AVT got hurt both years. The offensive line was horrendous, right? It was just a broken hot mess. And when Zach Wilson got hurt and Mike White came in, all of a sudden, we're beating the Bengals, right?
I remember that. Yeah, the Mike White experience. Yeah.
It didn't matter who played quarterback for us. Well, it was Flacco. If you take all the games that it wasn't Zach Wilson and it was any other quarterback, LaFleur's offense worked.
Yeah.
Those quarterbacks were having 300-yard plus passing games. Everything was fine. It wasn't the most exciting offense. It was a lot of dinking and dunking, but it was like he showed he was the offensive coordinator that was able to take, Mike White, what's his limited capability? And he put in a system that Mike White could execute and do really well at. And he did. And the problem with Zach Wilson is there was no system for him to succeed in. Because you can't dink and dunk with Zach Wilson, because he only knows how to throw the ball one speed, which is too fast, right? He throws every ball like he's throwing it 80 yards. And the ironic part is he can't even throw the ball over 54 yards. That's his max. So he, everybody says arm talent, but I guess it's how you talk about arm talent, because Zach Wilson doesn't have arm talent. If arm talent means touch, the ability to loft one in, and control ball speed, and when you're throwing a screen pass, take something off of it. That was why we couldn't run screen passes, because Zach Wilson couldn't do it. But anyway, getting out of that, LaFleur had his hands filled. He had a quarterback who literally was not workable. Like he couldn't, he's not an NFL quarterback. And the proof was every other quarterback that came in was fine. And the Jets offense actually looked very good, even with a bad offensive line. And then the final, nail in the coffin is look at Hackett. Like if you look at what the Jets got in Hackett and compare it to LaFleur, it was 10 times worse.
Yeah.
It was so much worse. So, yeah. So I think LaFleur got very unfairly beaten up. I think it was beautiful thing for him to go to the Rams, to go to a winning organization, work under a great head coach, a top-notch, class head coach, and get his second chance, because man, nobody deserves to have their career end because they couldn't win in New York for the Jets.
That's a sick way to say it. I actually, we won't go on this tangent too much here because we're talking Rams Jet, but I have a low-key prediction. I think Mike LaFleur is the next coach of the Chicago Bears. That's my hot take about Mike LaFleur. I think at the end of this year, because he didn't get any head coaching waves last off season, which I thought he was going to. But I like the Rams just in this McVay era. If you're the offensive coordinator for the Rams, odds are you're at least getting some interviews for a head coaching position, and I expect Mike LaFleur to start getting some hype around it.
Well, he would definitely make Caleb Williams play a better quarterback, because the one thing that LaFleur would definitely, I think, do, in my opinion, from watching the way he coached Mike White, is I think he would, like what Chicago is not doing for Caleb Williams, which what they should be doing is what Sean Payton is doing for Bo Nix. They should be putting in a system that works for the quarterback. And right now, Caleb Williams, especially if you look at his college tape, stop throwing downfield so much and just let the kid throw to guys coming across the middle, because that's what he does. Yeah. So like LaFleur is smart enough to do that. Like he would come in probably just like he did for Mike White. He'd have a check down available for him at every, there'll always be a check down for him. And there would be, on Chicago, he'd have like those receivers. I don't know if Allen will still be playing, but he'll have a Dunze. He'll have those guys running short cross patterns, running across the middle of the field. And that's where Caleb Williams is, at his best.
Yeah. No, I can see it. Grandizer are always asking great questions here. What 3 players or position matchups that either you may be watching that the rest of us fans should keep an eye out for? So yeah, when we're watching this game, can you think of either three kind of, let's go with matchups, either player to player or position group to position group. What are kind of three matchups that you see in this game? I'll start with my first matchup that I think is we talked about a little bit earlier. I think Kyren Williams against this Jets defense. Kyren Williams is one of the most disrespected running backs in the NFL. There are very few people, like a lot of people talk about Saquon Barkley or Derrick Henry or Josh Jacobs, and rightfully so. They're getting having a lot of success. Kyren Williams is having a fantastic year. The Rams trust him to do a lot. And I would love a statement game from Kyren Williams in this game. Would love to see him go for over 150 and a couple of touchdowns.
Okay. I would love to see how our kids on the offensive line we're talking about before do against this defensive line. I'm very curious about Joe Tippmann at center and see how he handles himself against these guys you have on the inside. And of course, Olu Fashanu is always the matchup I'm most interested in lately in the last few games, ever since we've been out of it. I just watch my rookie left tackle, who, is such an important part of the future. So I've been just eyeing him, always watching him, seeing how he's doing. So that's definitely a matchup I'm going to be looking at. I'm going to be looking at the offensive line and how we do, and are we going to give Rodgers the pass protection he needs?
Yeah. Okay. So Kyren versus the Jets run defense. Then you're talking about the Jets offensive line against the Rams young, front four. And I'm going to add something to watch for is Rams debuts. this game, and pardon my Canadian accent coming in there. The Tyler Higbee having his season debut coming in. This will be his first time seeing him play since his injury. And we've seen, odd videos about his rehab and stuff like that. But there's a difference, when you're in pads on a Sunday, in the NFL season. So excited to see him. But the other Rams player that might be getting some action this game that we haven't seen is Rams cornerback Emmanuel Forbes, who they picked up off of waivers. He got released from Washington, and the Rams picked him up off of waivers. He's a former first-round pick from just 2 years ago, but he got regulated to be like the 6th corner in Washington. Rams said that they liked him coming out of the draft and that they were surprised they got him off of waivers. So I wouldn't mind seeing what he can do. He dressed last game, but I don't think he got any snaps. So excited to see that, this might be a game that we might actually see him in a limited capacity in that.
Mm-hmm. Another matchup I'd like to see is Will McDonald versus your offensive line, to see what he could do. He's actually been playing amazing. He didn't have any sacks last week, but he you have to watch with your eyes sometimes. A lot of teams, and I'm sure the Rams are not will be no different. The teams have figured the Jets out that you got to get rid of the ball fast because of Will McDonald. He's actually, that's how I say, don't only look at his stats. He has a bunch of sacks, like 10 sacks, but look at the fact that teams are actually playing a certain way against us because of him, because he's been a ferocious pass rusher. And we've seen it. They're like, the teams that are playing us do it for 2 reasons. They're avoiding him on the pass rush, but they're also doing it because it works, because we give you tons of space in the middle of the field. Why not take it? So if for any reason you guys need to score fast or fall behind, or any situation where he's having to drop back Stafford and throw downfield, I'm always looking at Will McDonald, because he's a fun player to watch. He does both. He's improving his power game. He's a power rusher. He's more of a spin than a finesse rusher, but his power rushing is improving too, and he's really fun to watch.
Cool. My final matchup that I'm going to say here, and this is a Rams team as a whole. They've had some struggles in the first quarter. There's only been 3 games this year where they've scored a first quarter touchdown, when they played the Bills, the Eagles, and the Packers, I believe. They've had a lot of, they often have gone entire first quarters not scoring at all. And so I am curious if this is a game, the Rams, they're on the road, they're traveling a long ways for it. Are they able to start fast? Are they able to, because we saw the last game that the Rams started fast, they put up 44 points against Buffalo and were able to, contain Josh Allen, kind of, enough to at least beat the Bills. So I would say that's kind of my matchup, is just like the team preparation, the execution early on in this game, get the Rams on track quickly.
Our defense not allowing you guys to have an 8-minute touchdown drive to start the game is, probably pretty critical for the Jets not to fall behind, for the defense to actually pull something out of their behinds and figure out something to throw the Rams off. Maybe because LaFleur is there, that will encourage them to actually make a change in the strategy and actually try to throw the Rams off. Maybe it's enough for them to realize that, he knows exactly what's coming. He knows exactly how he play defense. Maybe this be finally we'll see the Jets change it up, and do something differently defensively. And
I'll be honest, I like the Rams' long scoring drives, kind of their thing. I would actually be more surprised, unless Puka, because Puka at least once a game makes an insane catch that you question if that was the greatest catch you've ever seen in your life. Yeah. And so I'm excited for that catch when it happens. Did you watch the Rams Niners game at all last week?
A little bit. You know what's crazy about Puka is that every mock draft, if you go back and watch how I do the mock drafts. If you watch my videos, if you watch my mock drafts, every freaking one, I was picking him the 4th and 5th round.
Yeah.
Every draft. There was never a draft I didn't take him because he was always there in the 4th and 5th round. I said, how are they not taking this kid? I don't understand the NFL sometimes because I don't know about the Rams fans, but Jet fans, we loved him. We all knew. And I have no idea why he lasted that long.
So I'll admit, when they drafted him, I was excited. I loved his college tape after learning about him. He's such a likable guy. You immediately, also from Puka's first press conference I heard from him, I liked him. Like, you're like, oh, this is a guy I can cheer for. It's easy to do that. And then when he got to camp, and there were all these, like, I remember his rookie season training camp, there's all these videos of him just making these insane catches. And you're like, okay, like, this is crazy. And then in the preseason, he was so dominant as a rookie, and like, he made Stetson Bennett look great, in the preseason.
Yeah.
And I remember his first game though against Seattle. It was week 1. He didn't score a touchdown, but I think he had like 119 yards receiving in his first game in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a large reason that the Rams beat Seattle pretty good in his first game. And that's when I was like, oh, the Rams found someone special in the 5th round.
Yeah.
And that was my wake-up call of like, oh, like Puka Nacua is going to be a star.
Yeah.
And and even this year, because he was injured for the first chunk of the season.
Yeah.
And I remember his first game back, it was against the Vikings, and the Rams won that on a Thursday night. And my friend, who I talk football with like almost every week, he's like, who knew having Kupp and Puka back would transform the Rams offense? And I was like, oh yeah, every Rams fan out there was like, oh yeah, no, like when Puka is there, this offense is way different. It's next level. And I'm so glad that we have Kupp and Puka there together. I think that I think this Rams team can go pretty far if Puka and Kupp are together.
Yeah, I mean, that's an exciting combination. How do you stop that? I mean, it's gross.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that the Rams do it. So we got a couple more minutes here, but we're going to get into kind of. Are you cool doing score predictions? I know some people like to. Are you cool doing a score prediction?
Yeah, I'll do it. I'll throw one out there.
I like to not just do score prediction, but like, what kind of flow do you think? Like, what kind of vibe do you think this game is going to have? I'm a vibes guy.
I think it's just going to be kind of. I mean, I'm expecting it to be really ugly on the Jet side. Like, I'm expecting you to have like, I don't think you're going to punt the ball a lot. Like, I think you might have 1 or 2 punts the whole game.
Okay.
Really, I don't think you're going to be punting a lot, but I think you're going to be kicking some field goals.
Yeah. We
do tighten up in the end zone, in the red zone. So, because there are some things to the defense we still do have. I think it's going to be kind of, I don't know, 27-17, but we get our last touch, like it's 27-10, and then we score a meaningless touchdown, or
like garbage time.
Okay. Yeah, 27-16. Like Rodgers, he's been good enough that he doesn't get shut down. He'll always have a good quarter or 10 minutes of the game where he just puts it together. And we'll have this beautiful drive and score a touchdown. We do it almost every game, like at least once. So maybe we get 2 like that in a field goal and get 17. Maybe we get 1. And then a garbage time one. So, but you guys will put up the only reason you're putting up 27 or 30 or something like that, and I'm not going higher, is because I think they're going to be the long sustained drive type of scoring.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I think that this game will have a little bit different flow to it. I think that the Jets score first, and then the Rams respond well to that. They kind of match touchdown for touchdown. And then I do think that the Rams have an edge in the special teams. And I think in kind of the time of possession and the field position battle game, I think the Rams win that pretty convincingly in this game.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I believe the difference maker will be. I'm predicting the Rams win this 28-13.
It's actually really what you say about special teams is so true, because our gunner, Irv Charles, is out, and we've been We've been very suspect. And then the running back we picked up because we have such bad returning, who scored a touchdown for us. So it was such a good pickup for us. Can't even say the kid's name. He's out. He's hurt for the year. So so our return game sucks. Like our returning is, we use a power running back, Isaiah Davis, to return kickoffs. And then, Xavier Gibson scored a touchdown against the Bills in the first game of last season. And for that reason, just for the Jets refused to remove him as the punt returner. He's just a bunch of hot garbage, So
yeah, okay, fair enough. Well, Jerry, thank you so much for coming on and doing this. This was a lot of fun. Where can people find you, and what kind of stuff do you got coming out?
So I'm at Jets Chaos. It's just that simple to find. The shows that we're doing now is I'm working with a guy named Tony DeGM. And we have a quarterback rating system out of college. So this is the time of year. We started early this year because of the Jets. We start rating college quarterbacks and putting them through our rating system. So every week on Friday, tomorrow at this exact time, pretty much. I mean, actually, it's 5 p.m. Eastern on Fridays. We go live and we look at film. I got a whole bunch of all 22 or whatever. And we look at film on a quarterback. We just pick a quarterback that's coming out of college. Just to get to know the quarterback and rate them and make our predictions about how they'll perform in the NFL.
Cool. Very cool. Oh, well, blessings on you that. Yeah, definitely going to check that out. And in your quest to find the Jets' new quarterback. Anyway, thank you so much, Jeremy. We'll talk off camera afterwards. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Feel free to like and subscribe to Jets Chaos, and I'll be hosting a watch party for the Rams versus Jets on Sunday. Would love to see you there. And as always, go Rams, horns up, and peace out. Let's go Rams.
Thank you very much.